You're going to stimulate your body's own production of HGH, which has very similar effects, but it's much more safe. You're not going to create some of the negative side effects that some people may have with HGH. He flip-flopped his body composition. Before, he was a lot more fat. Now he's a lot more muscle. Dramatically improved strength and endurance, faster post-workout recovery with less to no muscle soreness, better sleep, reduction in brain fog, more consistent workout performance, enhanced confidence and motivation to maintain healthy habits. The synergy between your growth hormone secretagogues or your growth hormone releasing peptides and then your regenerative peptides and anabolic stimulators really create amazing results beyond what's typical exercise and nutrition would alone. Welcome everybody to the Health Accelerator Challenges. This is your host today, Cade Archibald, and today I'm really excited because we are going to be diving into some of my favorite types of peptides, which are peptides that grow your muscles. So talking about some muscle gains today. Obviously, last week touched a little bit on that because your Wolverine stack, if you're recovering really well, that's going to help with your ability to continue to lift heavier, do more exercise, have higher intensity, which then puts on more muscle. So on the flip side, if you want to gain muscle and just be more anabolic internally, there's also some peptides that help with just building up that muscle. So, but it is a double-edged sword. If all you're doing is building muscle, but you're not recovering, or let's say all you're doing is working out and not giving your body a chance to recover, because that's actually when you build muscle. And you tear muscle and break it down when you're lifting weights or doing, certain activities. And then the recovery process is when it actually builds. And so here it's interesting because a lot of these peptides we'll talk about here are growth hormone releasing peptides. And when you release growth hormone, that is the healing process. And so similar to your BPC 157 and thymosin beta 4, where they help with recovery, those are working on completely different pathways that are more regenerative. They help with the tissue healing. Growth hormone releasing peptides. So they're peptides that open up the growth hormone pathway. So we are not talking about HGH in this video. So if you're looking for just straight up human growth hormone stuff, not for you, but this is a lot safer. You're going to stimulate your body's own production of HGH, which has very similar effects, but it's much more safe. You're not going to create some of the negative side effects that some people may have with HGH. So anyways, today I'll be talking about how we've successfly here at East West Health, we've helped thousands have their own transformations, but we'll talk about a specific case, 58-year-old male, gained muscle and just completely transformed his health. So stick around to the end. We got some very important things on how to build muscle and things that you should know before using some of these muscle growth peptides. So we'll talk a little bit about this case study. So 58-year-old male had complete transformation muscle. So a little bit of background on him. He came in to the office, metabolic dysfunction, mild sarcopenia, that's muscle wasting essentially, high visceral fat, and low energy levels, really struggled to maintain muscle mass and recovery after workouts. He became a patient enrolled into one of our East West Health Accelerate Wellness programs. His protocol, some of the main peptides that he was doing was CJC 1295 and Ipamorelin, BPC 157 and TB 500. So he had some growth hormone releasing peptides, some regenerative and tissue repair peptides. So if you're not able to see the slides, I'll kind of explain here. But CJC 1295 and Ipamorelin, this is stimulating that growth hormone. It's GHRP is how you'll hear them referred to as growth hormone releasing peptide. It also increases IGF-1 levels. And then you have the BPC 157, TB 500, and these peptides help with reducing inflammation. They promote muscle and connective tissue repair. So they're helping just repair, your joints, tissues, ligaments, all those things. And so, the CJC, Ipamorelin, focus on muscles. And then I have the BPC, the Wolverine blend, essentially is taking care of all my joints, my ligaments, tendons. I'm healing up really fast. I don't get muscle soreness after these workouts. I add in a little IGF-1 3. And this is going to amplify lean muscle development and strength. And then it had some other supportive therapies for nitric oxide boosting, some different resistant training, zone 2 cardio, very structured protein intake. So, just like what we've talked about here before, focusing on, approximately 1 gram of protein per body weight, 1 gram of protein per day per goal body weight, essentially. So, he's consuming, about 200 grams of protein a day. The results for this gentleman, and it's, he's been transforming over the last 2 years. Interesting thing, if I told you, in 2 years, this guy lost 11.1 pounds, you guys probably wouldn't be that impressed, right? You'd be like, so what? And that wasn't the goal. The goal wasn't for him to lose weight. The goal was for him to change his body composition. He wasn't abnormally overweight. Yes, he had some weight to lose, and based on the BMI, he could probably lose more. But now he went from 34% fat to 18.9% fat. Now, does he have a little bit more to lose? Yeah, he does. If he wanted to get like a 6-pack and have ridiculously low fat percentage, but under he's like, you get to 15, and that's a really big stretch. So anyways, he's doing great there as far as fat reduction goes. Visceral fat loss, nearly 1 full pound lost. And that's visceral fat. That's the really difficult to lose fat that's around organs. And that's the stuff, like, you lose that and it's a game changer. His fat mass reduction was a total of 33.6 pounds. And then his DEXA scan came back, very clear evidence of skeletal muscle hypertrophy. So he gained muscle and decreased abdominal fat. So that is great. He flip-flopped his body composition. Before he was a lot more fat. Now he's a lot more muscle. His impact dramatically improved strength and endurance, faster post-workout recovery with less to no muscle soreness, thanks to that Wolverine blend, right? The TB 500, amazing for DOMs. Better sleep, reduction in brain fog, more consistent workout performance, enhanced confidence and motivation to maintain healthy habits. And I think that is probably the biggest factor here. You get your health back, you get your energy back, you get your life back, essentially, because if you have the confidence to do, to stand up in front of people, to talk to people, to just feel good about yourself, that's huge. That's going to give you the motivation to maintain that. And so I think it's just awesome success story. I love these. Another really cool success story, and you probably heard Reagan talk about Zach Westphal transformation over 6 months. He had just kind of let things go, not necessarily let things go. He had to dive back into his business. He got really stressed, had a lot of challenges going on. And I wouldn't say like his before isn't like, he's terrible, but man, you look at that after and it's like pure muscle. But really what matters even more than the before and after image is how he felt. He had his brain, he had his energy, his motivation, his confidence is way up versus before. You just kind of trudging through things, and it makes life a lot less enjoyable. And so this is what we love to do at East West, is just create amazing ways for you to experience life more fulfilled through health. and through better health. So some insights, the synergy between your growth hormone secretagogues or your growth hormone releasing peptides, and then your regenerative peptides and anabolic stimulators really create amazing results beyond what's typical exercise and nutrition would alone, especially for a 58-year-old. Like you look at that case study we talked about, and changing body composition from it was almost 37% fat to 18% fat. That is not an easy feat to do for like a 20-something-year-old, let alone a 58-year-old. And so that's not something you'd normally see without some really good stacked peptides. And I think these are beautiful things. They're naturally occurring in the body. So it's not like we're juicing someone up with a bunch of steroids or something. And, maybe you can look at this as like a shortcut or a bypass, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's definitely not cheating, because the negative side effects from what I've seen, what I've experienced personally, and what our patients have, I don't know what the negatives are, other than, maybe a little skin irritation, or, sometimes someone, can have some allergic reactions to them or anything. I'm not going to get into the reactions. Very rare, but we've seen just amazing results. And so it's really exciting to see these things. So let's talk a little bit about why this works. So why that approach is. So first, leveraging your growth hormone releasing peptides to stimulate that anabolism. It sounds way too close to cannibalism there. So, these peptides like CJC, Ipamorelin, Tesamorelin, Hexarelin, these stimulate the release of growth hormone and IGF-1. Those are critical for muscle protein synthesis and recovery. And so, if you look at, let me grab this, whoopsie daisy. So, some of these peptides, so your ghrelin, it stimulates your growth hormone release. And so these peptides can increase reuptake, create more ghrelin or less, like MK677. That is, it's almost calculated or considered a SARMs, but very similar to a peptide. But what that does, it actually increases ghrelin quite a bit. And ghrelin is your hunger hormone. But what ghrelin does is it can be very powerful in stimulating the release of growth hormone as well, which you get growth hormone, and that's going to activate recovery, building of muscle, building of the body. Essentially, your growth hormone, when you have these young kids that hit their growth spurt, typically their growth hormones through the roof. Now, do you want to have growth hormone just like pedal to the metal nonstop all the time, every time? No, that's going to create other downstream effects. But what these peptides do is they open up that pathway for a certain, like a small amount of time, where it gives your body this like vital nutrient, this vital growth hormone, and it can just recover better, or faster, more effectively. And so it's a great little bypass to just add it into your stack of, whether it's if you take supplements, things like that. You can look at it as this way, but they're definitely much more elevated than just that. And why else this works? So the regenerative peptides, so if you look at the Wolverine blend with BPC 157, TB 500, those are there to accelerate the recovery and prevent the breakdown, especially of the joints. So you're just like building muscle with the growth hormone releasing peptides. And then the BPC 157, TB 500, they're supporting and reducing that inflammation. They improve blood flow to the muscle tissue, and they'll promote regeneration, muscles, fibers, ligaments, tendons. And so this is going to allow for more consistent training, greater gains over time by shortening that recovery window. It also prevents some of the injury setbacks. So like bodybuilders love these combos, but you don't have to be a bodybuilder to use these. And if your goal is to put on just massive amounts of muscle, yes, great. Most of them are taking these like all all day throughout the day. So some of our guy listeners here just like, all right, yes, I'm just going to just take this nonstop all day, every day. Don't do that. I'm not recommending that, but that's what a lot of bodybuilders have done is they'll take some of these growth hormone releasing peptides a few times throughout the day. That's just going to give you bigger bumps, but that's where, you don't want to have growth hormone just running rampant through your body. There are some negative side effects if you get too much long term. And why else this works? So what else worked about this protocol is the cycles and stacks of these peptides were based on what this individual 58-year-old needed. He had specific things going on in his labs that we were able to utilize peptides to help right size those. And I think that's probably the biggest benefit and most unique thing about what we do here at East West is we can really customize these protocols based on what's going on in someone's internal physiology. We can also use some of the symptomatic things and then really create a peptide protocol that can be super robust. And I think one of the most important things is the peptides that we're using are from a very well certified pharmacy, and they go through some very rigorous testing and approval processes just to be able to supply these peptides versus just going online and shopping for some of these random peptides. You get the peptide vial and they're going to say research only, not for human consumption. Some of those could be fine, but for us, we don't want to risk that whatsoever. And we only are going to utilize and prescribe what's the most highest quality and safest thing that we have a pharmacist that can actually look at it, stamp it, and ensure that it is very high quality stuff. Here's some other clinical studies. So, and I'll just kind of highlight some of these, but there's a clinical study with CJC 1295 demonstrated that this peptide led to a 2 to 10-fold increase in plasma growth hormone levels for over 6 days and 1.5 to 3-fold increase in IGF-1 concentrations for 9 to 11 days. So just that little boost of growth hormone in that short amount of time during the day, that compounds over time. And so that's also why we say usually you go 5 days on, 2 days off, because you want to give that pathway a break. But really you're building up those levels. So your body is just more robust, more, easier to recovery, all those things. Ipamorelin, clinical trials on this show that it increases growth hormone levels. And it really why we mix or why we would couple, say, tesamorelin or CJC with ipamorelin is it's a multiplier. So, the growth hormone releasing peptides like CJC or tesamorelin, you add in ipamorelin in it, it multiplies. Don't quote me on the number. I think it's somewhere around 3 to 7 times more growth hormone when you have those coupled together. Some additional stuff. So some clinical study on BPC is increased recovery, skin wounds, tendon injury, muscle tears. There's a lot of rodent models. I think any of the listeners here have heard Reagan talk about mice, and he's got a whole farm of mice that he's just pumping full of BPC 157. And they're just the most robust mice you'll ever see. He really doesn't. But there's some pretty gnarly studies on mice or rats as well. But they've done some traumatic brain injury tests where they dropped a brick on a mouse. And then for recovery, they had the control group that, those actions happened to both groups, but the control group did not get any BPC in the water. The study group had high levels of BPC in the water. And so as they drank, they actually recovered significantly faster. And most in the control group, they died. And so amazing from that aspect of, can help with traumatic brain injuries, muscle, ligament tears, all these different components. TB500 improves athletic performance metrics, with a 12-week trial showing 28% greater strength retention in treated subjects during rehab phases. And so, great for, doing big workouts and recovering from workouts, but it can also be huge for someone that's gone through surgery or someone that's fallen. Some of these older patients that they've had accidents, that can help with the recovery process and the rehab process. And so I think it's so cool how dynamic these are. Another study on IGF-1 LR3. So it's known for its powerful muscle building effects as well. There was a comparative study on rats showed that administration of IGF-1 LR3 led to significant gains in body weight, primarily reflecting lean muscle mass rather than fat gain. So one thing to know, especially with IGF-1, MK677 would be another one, is, and some of your growth hormone releasing peptides, is a lot of times you will put on weight because you're putting on muscle and you're converting a lot of your fat into muscle. And so depending on how much you're eating, and if you're eating good amounts of protein, you're going to continue, you may gain weight while you're doing that, especially if you're lifting weights and doing things that's going to build muscle. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if your goal is you want to see the scale number drop, which, hopefully that's not really your goal. Your goal is better body composition. So more muscle, less fat. But if you're seeing that rise, sometimes it can be kind of disheartening if all you're measuring is your body weight. And so it's really important to look at multiple factors, maybe get a DEXA scan. Or I've been testing out the Hume. It's a weight scale and it's got a little handle. You can get some basic biometrics with body fat percentages and things. Seems to be okay. Like nothing really compares to a DEXA scan, but you're also not going to have a gigantic egg-shaped weird doohickey in your house that you're going to get into every day. And I think, they're a 6-figure price tag. So maybe you go once in a while to get one of those done. And then you have something like that in your house, like a Hume, or at our office, you can come and do the StyQ, which it's a full laser of your body and the body composition, how you look, how you feel. If you're able to move, that's really what matters versus the weight. So here are, so your challenge for this week, so do some, if you're not currently following a good workout regimen, try some of these exercises. This is a great kind of beginner's workout. So you could do goblet squats. Make sure your form's right. You're keeping your core tight and back straight. Here, arm rows. You can try those and you can see the images. If you're listening to the podcast, if you want to see the images, go to our YouTube channel at East West Health, and you can watch the video with some of the images and everything. But you can also, if you're a client of ours, work with Nikki or one of your fitness advisors. They will design a whole strength and training program for you. They'll hop on Zoom and help dial in your form and everything if you're new to exercise. Or if we have an amazing fitness app that you can track all your workouts, and they can help you customize your workout. You can customize it, but you definitely reach out to Nikki for that, or just work with us, East West Health. You can give us a call, shoot us an email at info@agelessfuture.com. If you feel like this would be beneficial for any of your friends, family, loved ones, please share it. That's the one way we love putting out good content and great educational information. And one way that we see that as a way to give back to the community. If you wouldn't mind, if you like it, please share it with someone. That's going to help us get to more people and more ears. So thank you, everybody. Love you. Have a great day. And we'll see you next time.